Let's just look at the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King's family.
So, and you saw where his baby boy died, right?
Yeah.
Music is not rolling.
What's happening?
The music is weird.
The music is not coming through well.
Not. Okay, that's okay. Let me turn it down. How about this? Let me turn it off then. As was said, so the last time that where we left off last time. Somebody put something in the chat. Hey, all right, thanks. You know, his house was bombed, 56. Supreme Court rules bus segregation unconstitutional. He was elected to the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. He was elected president. It was on the cover of Time magazine, 57. Second.
I'm sure that went over well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm sure they love that. Yeah. And he wrote his first book, Strive Toward Freedom. And then this is kind of like where we left off. A mentally ill Black woman stabs King at a Harlem book signing. And as was mentioned by Celeste, Sister Celeste and others, just a couple of days ago, his youngest son, passed away. I think he was 62. So he's joined the ancestors, his mom and dad in Amenta. Sorry, say again. Okay.
That was just somebody's background. Galaxy, whoever's Galaxy S21. They were just coming on.
All right. I know who that is. Okay. Yeah, so kind of sad. And I know that he had been battling cancer for a little while. Anyway, one of the greats from the great King family. So I was listening to this, and I want to play some of this. This was last year, someone said, or maybe the year before. This is Professor Manu Ampim, and Professor Manu Ampim, his master's thesis was on the revolutionary Dr. Martin Luther King. So he really deplores how Dr. King is portrayed by Babylon. And Babylon is, I use a lot of Rasta terms, Babylon is a euphemism for an oppressive system. So, let's see, come on. I'll have to do it another way. Hold on. In this show here, where? Let's see. There. All right. I think I can get to it here. History. Here it is. All right.
We have peaceful and very good race relations. You need to wait.
Hold on. Now, can you all hear that? Okay, good. All right. Okay, so I just want to play a few minutes of it. It was a good show, and then we can pick up on the other side. All right.
For progress to take place. We got good relations, so why don't you just wait? And then King came up with a tremendous response. He said, time is neutral. It can be used effectively or ineffectively. The problem in America is that those of ill will, the negative people, use time far more effectively than those of goodwill. And here's why we can't wait. So he slammed his opponents and told them what the time it was. We have any other books? Okay, so let me help you out. He wrote 5 books. And now Dr. King, he worked 20-hour days. And the man literally was flying hundreds of thousands of miles, they calculated, every year. So how would he ever spend time or carve out time to write books? Well, every year around January, right around this time, he would go to Jamaica. He would go to Jamaica and he would do some R&R, because one of the things that frustrated Dr. King is not being fresh, not being mentally astute, and having the mental agility to address all of the issues that were coming at him in the Black community. So he said that this was mandatory. So strive towards freedom while we can't wait. Of course, he's a minister. He was a minister in a family of ministers, Baptist ministers. So strength to love. Trumpet of Conscience. This was a series of lectures in Canada called the Massey Lectures. So this was in '67, the Trumpet of Conscience, and King was beginning to discuss, along with his organization, the Poor People's Campaign that he began to organize, because for him, they hadn't won any victories in a while, no legislation. So King and his organization, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, they envisioned a campaign to take over Washington, D.C. And so where do we go from here? Chaos or Community. This was his last book that he wrote. And it's amazing that this book is not front and center when people are talking about, quote unquote, living the dream. What dream? This was a practical man who had a plan. And on his birthday, he wasn't riding no freedom train and all that. He was at his house meeting with activists, including Cesar Chavez and others, about how do they organize this massive multiracial poor people's campaign to do what exactly? To take over Washington, D.C., literally, and to camp out until there was a Bill of Rights for the disadvantaged in the billions of dollars. And he said to the Black Power advocates like Kwame Ture and others who wanted to blow everything up, they said, brothers, now they thought they were meeting privately in D.C., but come on, that's the FBI main headquarters. They had everything taped. How do you know that, Professor? Because I've seen the records. And if you want to look at the records at the FBI headquarters, you got to go to a file named Black Nationalist Hate Groups. Literally, Black Nationalist Hate Groups. They all were considered hate groups by the outrageous FBI that was run by white men who didn't respect anybody. And so they thought they were meeting privately. They were not. King and his group were meeting with a lot of the Black Power advocates to figure out, what do we do now? Because the Civil Rights Bill had been passed in '64, the Voting Rights Bill had been passed in '65, and yet there was no tangible progress towards equality and the acquisition of power. So King said, look, the Poor People's Campaign is, this is his words, the last desperate attempt for nonviolence. He said, brothers, give us like 3 months to see if we can shake up the government. So it'll be no business as usual. They were going to have thousands of people camped out in Washington, D.C. on the mall to make sure that there would be no vehicular traffic into the Capitol building, and that there will be no pedestrian traffic. And at the same time, they will organize to jam up all the phone lines. No business as usual. And then the next phase of that taking over DC, guess what? And to do what King said was to dislocate the cities of America. So he said that, look, our strategy was to dislocate a city, cripple the city without destroying it. This is how he explained it. To cripple it without destroying. In other words, we don't need to tear down the buildings, but we're going to cripple operations until there's a Bill of Rights for the disadvantaged. And so that's when the FBI moved on King to make sure that he did not implement what the plans were with the Poor People's Campaign, which was scheduled for late April of '68. He was assassinated on April 4th of '68. The last book, so these are the 5 books he wrote. I'm going to put a 6th book on here. He didn't write it, but
So now we know why he was killed then, because of what he was organizing. That, that Poor People's Campaign was for the end of April, and they struck him then.
What did they say? What did Professor Amen say those tapes were called?
He said black black
Black nationalist hate group.
hate groups. Yes, thank you. Black nationalists.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Wow. And so when they, people are, when the actors were on strike, one of the things that they were on strike about is they didn't want to get their image used in artificial intelligence, and that was their holdout, because okay, artificial intelligence can recreate your voice, recreate your image, and even if you're dead, you could still, that image still could be perpetuated. But that's exactly what happened to the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. And so you should go back and listen to what Professor Manu was saying, because he's really vexed about it, because he has done a lot of primary research, and he knows the truth about it. And so when they repackage Martin Luther King, he's a pork barrel preacher with a Bible under his hands, saying, "I had a dream, we shall overcome." So, any thoughts on that, you all? You guys are such a talkative bunch today. Let's sing "We Shall Overcome." All right.
So, I remember, so I was in the Navy, I was overseas. And so you only get watered down versions of what's going on stateside. And I know there was
very good race related.
Sorry.
Yeah, there was a lot of negative talk about what he was doing. But I remember saying, when he expanded his scope, and well, not when he started putting energy into it. He talked about it before. It was always like a side thing, like, yes, the big picture is we got to free ourselves, but free ourselves to what? And so he says we got to make what we want better. And so he was expanding as we were expanding. But I remember sitting, I went, oh man, this is not good. This is if you follow, not if you follow, following our history, when that individual and comes up that with the right, where people gravitate to, they just wipe us out, man. Just, I mean, and it doesn't make any difference which way, so Malcolm, Dr. King, they just go, okay, here's another one. It made it very, I was amazed that people kept going, because you put your head up, if you just got behind everybody else, you're in the group, you're moving behind them, you're okay. But if you stepped out, if you said, huh, then they see you're different. And so people just, okay, I didn't see that either. But I like it because it's continued. You know, it goes up and down. You were talking about Tim Scott, you know, just you know, I could see him grinning, and I hate to label people,
Yeah.
real, but man, come on, if you can't, the old saying, if you don't have something good to say, you just keep your mouth shut. You can stay in the background, you have to say it, but yeah,
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. I was.
I
Yeah.
think Tim Scott is thinking about being a VP and hoping Trump's gonna die.
Yeah.
Do you really think
Yeah,
Trump would pick him for VP though? Do you really think Trump would pick him for VP?
Well, maybe.
This whole thing is a circus. So the other thing that I posted last night was how many have heard of Gorgeous George? Gorgeous George was a wrestler in the 40s and 50s and 60s.
yes.
And he was a very flamboyant wrestler, and that's who that's who Donald Trump patterned himself after. And let me see if I could pull up uh, uh,
Muhammad Ali also.
Muhammad Ali and James Brown, but they did it a different way. Let's see. Uh, let me get. This is the image that this is the image that I posted. See that? Who does that look like?
Unbelievable.
Yeah. But you know what? That's what people want.
Apparently.
People want. So, there's a lot of things that I disagree with policy-wise with Biden. I really hate and deplore what's going on with the Palestinians. But if we don't keep Trump out, we'll be like the Palestinians.
They did a lot of interviews with people who said, I guess it was coming either just before or after Iowa, that they didn't like him. They didn't like Trump.
Right.
They didn't like his personality, but they liked his policies.
Yeah.
And I'm not a real good person of hearing all the current stuff. What policies?
Yeah, he doesn't have any policies. His policy is to take over. Really, his policy is to stay out of jail.
Well, yeah, but somebody
you know
was
what?
saying
You know what,
they
Celeste?
have more money now. But I thought that the money thing that he did was basically to benefit his higher income people that he wanted to be his friends, and that the individual part of it expired.
You know what, Celeste? That's a very good point, and I'm going to stop us. I did it. We talked about Tim Scott, and then of course that went to he who should not be named, and then I showed Gorgeous George, which is who he's really patterned himself after, and that's who people want that. But I want to get back to Dr. King because that this is supposed to be part 2 of Dr. King.
I was able to hear Saban, Professor Menu, and Pim speak in person, speak about Dr. King. And one of the statements that he makes is that Dr. King is portrayed as a dreamer. He was not a dreamer. He was not a dreamer.
He was a man with a plan.
And my thing is, when I think of Dr. King, I also think of the Dream Stella that our ancestors wrote. oh gosh, how many thousands of years ago.
Yes.
And I say that point to share that our mindset has to really change. When we juxtaposition history and our ancestors, we need to really have a strong frame of reference that reflects, as Professor Kenneth Kaba would say, our principles, our interests, and our values.
Yeah. Thank you. That's all very true. But I remember where I was going with that. So I talked about the AI and how your image can be changed. And this is exactly how the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King's image has been changed. And so really for if he was to come back now on this plane and see how he's portrayed, he wouldn't recognize himself. You know, and in order to get the clear message about him, you'd have to read his books. You know, you have to have study sessions like we're doing now. You have to read what Professor Manuel Ampim has written, and also those articles in Great Black Leaders, Ancient and Modern, by Dr. Ivan Van Sertima. So there's so many things, and then now you can just go on YouTube, type in Dr. Martin Luther King speeches, and listen to his whole speeches. You know, get the words from even the "I Had a Dream" speech. You know, he's talking about police brutality. You know, and he's articulating so many things that are positive and progressive, but they've totally distorted his image, you know, who he is. It's just like anything. They've you know, Egyptology was created to distort the image, to distort the history, the true history, you know, and so anything is, you know, so Black nationalist hate groups is what you'll have to look under to find out things. So these things are totally distorted, and some people are willing to help distort the image of us as a people, themselves, and people like the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. So you know, getting back to Tim Scott, just one more thing. Stephen Bantu Biko said this: the most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressed, in the hands of the oppressor, is the mind of the oppressed.
Mm-hmm.
The most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. And so when you see people like Tim Scott, you say, my God, man, have some pride. Come on. All right. All right. Let's pick up with Dr. King. All right. Can everyone see that?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So this is part of that. Excuse me. This is part of the outline that I had. So how about this? These are things you don't really think about with the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther. 1959, I was 1 year old. He studies nonviolent tactics during a trip to India. He went to India to study nonviolence. 1960, he returns to Ebenezer Baptist Church. He's arrested at one of hundreds of sit-ins that occurred throughout the year. He wasn't, to quote Kwame Ture, he wasn't just talking nonviolence. He was out in the front of the line showing his nonviolence. And then here, his son that we just lost, a few days ago. Dexter was born January 30th, 1961. He assists in negotiation for freedom riders. 61, he goes to Albany, Georgia to aid a desegregation campaign and is arrested. He's arrested in 62 in Albany. Bernice, his fourth child, is born in 63. He spends a week in the Birmingham jail and he writes a letter to the nation. It's called the Birmingham Letters. Police attack protesters in Birmingham. Writes a second book. Professor Manu, on that video that we showed, he talks about collection of his sermons, Strength to Love. It's published. And then it's not only him. There are a number of people. Trying to think of the brother that one of the people that was the organizer. Oh, it'll come to me. But there were a cadre of people that were organizing that brought about this magnificent display of people power. 250,000 people, not to watch a athletic event or not to go to the movies, but to go and protest in Washington. And he delivers his "I Had a Dream" speech. Meets Lyndon Johnson to discuss civil rights legislation. And again, he's named Man of the Year, 1964 Time magazine. And then in 64, he writes the book, Why We Can't Wait. Because that's what people were saying. Well, you need to slow down. You need to wait. And he wrote, Why We Can't Wait. Civil rights action to sign into law. He meets with Pope Pius VI, 64. And then, okay, this is a very important part. I'm going to pause here. December 10th, 1964, he receives the Nobel Peace Prize in Oslo, Norway. Now, what happened then? Was somebody trying to persuade him to do something? Does anybody know the answer to that question? Just before he received his Nobel Peace Prize. Anyone?
Mm-mm.
Okay,
Did Manu Ampim say anything about that?
I'm sure he did, but I'm asking you right now.
No, I haven't.
Okay. Anyone else? Anyone want to attempt? Go ahead. Damani knows. All right, go ahead.
I don't know. What's the question?
The question is, okay, he's about ready to receive the Nobel Peace Prize, but there was somebody that wanted him to do something, that was encouraging him to do something. Does anybody know what that was and who the person was that was trying to do that?
Oh, I don't know. Last week you talked about J. Edgar Hoover, and they was a bunch of phony tape recordings. They supposed to had a bunch of phony tape recordings of his infidelity, which was not true. And they was trying to get him to, I don't know, trying to get his wife to divorce him, trying to get him to, I'm not sure what they was trying to get him to do.
Well, okay, you got
Or something.
you got the person right. Did somebody say it? I'm sorry.
Commit suicide. Trying to get him to commit suicide.
They were trying to get him to commit suicide. He did not want him to receive his Nobel Peace Prize. So J. Edgar Hoover was, sending letters and, different ways of communication to try to convince Dr. King to commit suicide rather than receive his Nobel Peace Prize. What
Say
you say?
what? Say
Yeah.
what?
Yes.
Well, I mean, how dumb was that? I mean, for him to think that he was gonna convince somebody to kill themselves.
He was obsessed with
He was
him.
crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know, you were saying that Robert Kennedy placed the order. I'm sure that Hoover had quite the story to tell about what a threat he was. Whether or not Robert Kennedy actually agreed with it or knew, don't know. But I'm sure that Hoover tried his best to convince him that this was the most terrible thing that could happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a fact that Robert Kennedy, who was the Attorney General at the time, authorized the wiretapping of Martin Luther King. So I'm sure that J. Edgar Hoover was very convincing, and he probably had stuff on the Kennedys too. You know, so
Probably.
yeah. So that was probably part of it. While he was, but you know, I just wanted to bring that up. Wow, you're gonna they didn't want him to. Just think about it. Okay, it was 1964. You know, black people, 1964. Okay, desegregation. Okay, it had just been ruled that these things are unconstitutional, but they didn't just overnight say, okay, you know, people were still fighting for their rights. People were still striving, still marching, still having sit-ins. And Dr. King had gone from the moral issue to the economic issue. And when you start messing with people's money, then, okay, and you know, organizing the Poor People's Campaign, he was working with Cesar Chavez and other people. They said, okay, we need to take this man out. You know, and then, okay, we're not going to forbid people to learn about King. We're just going to change his image all the way.
Mhm.
So it'll be in an image that we feel comfortable with,
Mhm.
and lead people that way. All right. Any comments or questions? Thank you, Celeste, for sending me that information regarding Robert Kennedy Jr. Obviously, not a good alternative to. I don't know. It's the lesser of two evils. You know, who do you know, the devil you know or think you know? You know. So, all right. I didn't say that you know, in the Nation of Islam sense, but maybe I did. Okay, let's keep going. So yeah, he receives the Nobel Peace Prize, which is a great honor. He's arrested in Selma. You know what? This is another issue. Let me stop here. Voter registration. You know, gerrymandering, voter suppression. That's still going on. That has not left the American political structure. And I want to back up. They were saying that 8 out of the 9 last presidential elections, Democrats have gotten more votes than Republicans. So when Trump was elected in 2016, he lost by 3 million votes to Hillary Clinton. How is that democratic? How can you lose by 3 million votes and still be elected? Because of what? Anybody? I can't.
Electoral
The
college.
Electoral College.
The Electoral College, which is what? A leftover from slavery.
Correct.
But wasn't it a way to give the smaller states more representation?
Yeah.
So they didn't always get overrun? So maybe we just really need to do our whole political system from top to bottom.
That's it. That's one of the things. At least, what are you saying, Henry? What are you saying? You're muted.
Yeah, because they didn't want to count the slaves. So yes, it tied into slavery, even though they wanted to balance it out. But they had all these people that they couldn't count, but they had to provide for, really. So they switched this around and said we balance it out, 2 senators for each state, and then the House of Representatives will represent the number of people. And well, you had the slave owners in the South, you had the slave owners and a huge number of slaves. And he said, well, we got to feed them, we have to clothe them. We don't get credit for it, but we have to somehow or another, we have to come out on top.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just I'm typing in something here. So, okay. I live in Sacramento County. And this is the population of Sacramento County. I don't know if there's that many people in Wyoming.
Right. Oh yeah, right.
Or like these other states that just had elections. It's not that many people. That first election, Iowa, it was 56,000 people voted. Let me get back to that that original point. And then Trump lost to Biden by 7 million votes. So these things that Dr. King was fighting against 1965, it's still going on. He was arrested trying to register people to vote in Alabama. 1965, Malcolm X was assassinated. And okay, there's so much controversy and confusion about that. Who did it? Martin Luther King leads the march from Selma, Albany to Montgomery. President Johnson signs the Civil Rights Bill, and there's a statement that President Johnson made about that. What did he say about that? I'm trying to remember it exactly myself, but after the Civil Rights Bill was signed, President Johnson had something to say about that, and it had to do with political parties. And the South. Go ahead, Bill. Go ahead, Bill. Go ahead.
We've lost the South to the Republicans forever.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. We've lost the South to the Republicans. And that's what's going on now.
For a generation.
It's gone past the generation. Yeah. I've just lost the South to the Republic forever. Yeah. Go ahead.
As Damani said, for a generation. Yeah.
For a generation. Were you gonna say? Yeah, go ahead.
I got this book here. Where do we go from here?
Yes.
It's a book that Professor Manute Ampim mentioned. This is a dynamite book on Dr. King. It's by Dr. James Cone. It's called Malcolm, Martin, and America.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's real good, man. It's real good. And this right here is a little book of quotations by Dr. King. And one of my favorite quotes is said, oh man, let me see. Our spiritual power has outrun, not our spiritual power, our technological power has outrun our spiritual power. We have guided missiles and misguided men. Another favorite quote of mine by Dr. King was, all are significant on God's keyboard, from a triple white to a base black. Now, I've been to the King Memorial 3 times in DC. If you get a chance, please go to the King Memorial in DC. It's very dynamite. But real fast, one of the points I wanted to get to was in the book, Where Do We Go From Here? The question was never answered by the Black mass. Where do we go over here was the sponsor. What is the ideological direction of the masses now that the NAACP desegregation campaign is over? You know, we have the civil rights bill, we have the voting rights bill, and then Kwame Ture come in. Where do we go from here? 5 days after Johnson signs the Voting Rights Act, riots break out in Watts. And so we needed Black power. Kwame Ture's answer was Black power. But what I'm trying to get at, King, Sheikh Avor, Frantz Fanon, Kwame Ture, Cesar Chavez, all of these figures, people in our history, did not let themselves be corrupted by the system. The Kwame Ture, I got an article on my wall. Kwame Ture said, Africans in higher education has a responsibility not to be corrupted by the system.
Yes.
And what he means is to seek a life of pleasure, a life of comfort and pleasure. At the expense of, we are in the belly of the beast. We have a responsibility to the oppressed people of the world to understand the system like Dr. King understood the system, and the system of capitalism I'm talking about.
Yes. And
this system is an imperialism. Real fast, imperialism is it's the highest stage of capitalism. Imperialism is an international control of corporate finance capital on an international level that controls the monopoly control of the political, economic, and social lives of half of the world's people. So we see what's going on in Gaza right now. It's really America has shown us, that's the word I'm looking for. What's going on in Gaza right now is U.S. imperialism. America is showing us its true colors. That's not the word I'm looking for, but it's showing us its true colors that we're going to rule the world by force. This is what happened to you if you get out of line. This is what happened to you if you try to upset the system of European domination of the world's people. So anyway, I think we got a right not to be corrupted by the system, and we have a responsibility not to be corrupted by the system and understand capitalism. It's parasitic nature. It's exploitive nature, and is even exploiting. I ain't gonna take up all the time. It's even exploiting us here in the United States with this technology. And real fast, I did a quick study on all the billionaires that were backing the Republican Party. It was backing DeSantis, and man, most of these guys are Jewish. I got Bill Ackman. Bill Ackman was a guy that just got rid of Claudine Gay. He used the money to go out to DEA, diversity, equity, and inclusion, to go out the affirmative action programs And so these billionaires, and most of them are Jewish, they are trying to undermine Black leadership. I ain't got time to get into the Powell memo. And the Powell memo is basically, well, I say I ain't gonna get into it, but if you get a chance, read the Powell memo of 1971, how they fear a rise of a Black Messiah. The Black intellectuals are able to offer the best critique of capitalism. They write the best papers. They give the best critique of this system. And so the Powell memo is all about destroying Black consciousness, destroying Black leadership, destroying grassroots Black organizations who was pro-socialist or democratic socialist or that. Anyway, I ended right there. I can say so much.
No, thank you, Brother Damani, and don't feel like you've overtalked because this is on point, and this is all part of it in the totality. That's why we're having this extension. We were going to end it last week, but we're having this extension to discuss these issues because all of these things are pertinent to the discussion of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King again. And if you wouldn't mind just giving us the titles that you just gave us, those books that could you repeat that again, please?
Yeah, this is about a Reverend James Cone. It's called Martin, Malcolm, and America. Oh man, it's dynamite. And
now, is this the same James Cone that wrote Black Nationalism?
Yes, the same James Cone wrote Black Nationalism.
Oh, okay.
Yes. He pointed out, I know you pointed out last week that Martin and Malcolm was not adversaries, as the white press tried to make them out to be adversaries. But they was, King led a Southern-based rural movement. Malcolm led a Northern-based urban movement.
Yes, yes.
And they really was playing off each other. He said they was like soldiers on the battlefield, fighting their enemy from different angles of vision, pointing out each other's blind spots. They was like the yin and the yang of Black America. And
go, Brother Damani, go, man. That's great. Now, what's the next title?
Oh, the next one is where do we go from here?
Uh-huh.
Where do we go from here? Because the Black community is split into two camps. We had the integrationist camp, segregationist camp, and we had the Black nationalist camps. And let me see, in the Black nationalist camp, we had SNCC. They reformed their charter. We had the Resurgent Nation of Islam. We had the newly organized Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, the Republic of New Africa, the ideologically potent West Coast US organization by Dr. Karenga, and we had the Congress of African People out east, led by Emma Baraka.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then down at the segregationist camp, we had the NAACP, we had the Southern Christian Leadership, we had CORE, and you had a Southern Baptist Association as a nexus of African American churches. And what the white liberals did to draw a split. Now, 1975, Nixon and them Kennedy and them saw this split. So they put COINTELPRO to create divisions between the two camps. To put division between the two camps. And what the white liberals did, they joined forces with the integrationist camp, the segregationist camp. And, they gave them money and gave them resources, and they, because they were scared of the Black nationalists. The Black nationalist groups was the fire. King was the water. So we said we better go along with Dr. King and this side of the movement. Anyway, they co-opted. This side became the Black bourgeoisie. They Yeah, they
Hey, Damani, we have a question in the chat. It says, what is the title of the letter? Is it the Powell? Is it the power letter, or were you saying the Powell letter?
the Powell memo.
Powell, it's Powell.
Yeah, he became a Supreme Court justice, and he wrote an article in the 1970s, and Cornel West always mentioned the Powell memo, and Chris Hedges always mentioned the Powell memo. So last couple of days ago, I went and studied the Powell memo. It's a long memo, but he's telling corporate America about the threat that's about the threat to the system, and they better marshal their resources. It's really a corporate imperialism of the internal imperialism of the United States to dominate our democracy. And next thing you know, you got the Supreme Court, the 5-4 Supreme Court decision that allowed big money to flood into our politics. And now that now we ain't got much control of politics. But one more thing, check this out. He
Okay,
said,
hold your point. So those of us that were asking, here it is.
Yes, a call for arms to corporations.
And this is looks like a good a resource. Also, when I did a search, there is a PDF of this memo. So let's see what happened. Why can't I wanted to put this in the chat.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, Damani, go ahead.
Oh no, yeah, I got to print that out and read that whole article. I was kind of skimmed through it. But it's something else. On this little pamphlet written, this is a message to the Black movement, written over 50 years ago by the Black Liberation Army. But on page 6, they talks about oh man, let me get to page 6. He said, we have found the democratic process under capitalism. And check this out now. We have found the democratic process under capitalism to be merely a means by which capital controls the masses. It is a means of mass diversion designed to keep the powerless class politically impotent, while at the same time voting fosters the illusion that real power can be gained through the electoral process. Black people should know better. In a nation based on the false principle of majority rule, we are 13, 14, 15% of the population, and therefore our right to self-determination cannot be won in the arena of our oppressors. Yeah, and so sometimes we depend on electoral politics to solve our problems, and it ain't happening.
Well, so I've just put in the chat the article. It's Bill Moyers.com, the Powell memo called to arms for corporations. And then I also put in the chat the actual memo itself. Let me just show you what it looks like. Thank you for bringing that up, Brother Damani. That one. So this is the way it looks. 1971. Dimensions of the attack. Sources of the attack. Tone of the attack. It's 34 pages. And so I put that for you in the chat for your reading pleasure. All right. So any other comments, sisters and brothers? We have about 27 minutes before we are dismissed. Anything else that we want to look at? before
What
we
I just heard,
go on? Yes, go ahead.
what I just heard says to me, answers the question where we go from here, part of it.
Mm.
Yes.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yes. What's that you're holding up, Celeste?
It's a book by Cleveland Sellers,
Uh-huh.
The River of No Return, the autobiography of a Black militant and the life and death of SNCC. And he has a chapter toward the end of the book that talks about King's death, and what was going on, particularly with Stokely Carmichael. They were traveling to Washington, and the reaction of the people around it, and the start of the neighborhood's reaction, and the reporters and people's reactions to them, and asking weird questions, and not realizing the people's reactions to King's death. He was saying they didn't get it, but it was also Cleve is writing how much Stokely Carmichael loved and respected Dr. King. They might have come at it for different ways, but
he really did. He really did. Is that Judy's hand up there?
It is.
Hey, what
Can
was
you
the
hear
name of
me?
that book?
Hold your thought, Damani, and Sister Judy, go ahead.
Oh, yes. I just wanted to say good evening. I'm so sorry I joined late, but I'm so thankful that this is recorded. I just wanted to say, Brother Damani, oh my God. Whew, you have been dropping it. Yeah, bringing the truth. That's JD in the background. Minister Imhotep, I hope we have Damani come back on and give us just a whole nother, I guess, part 3 or some more of what really took place during the whole civil rights movement, the whole Black Power movement, and all of it. If we could, I would love to hear more, but that's all. I just wanted to add that, and I'm listening. Thank you.
Hey, can I say something? No?
Yes, who's that that's saying that?
That's JD wanting to say something.
Hey,
I'm
JD,
sorry.
yeah, go ahead, man.
How you doing today?
Good,
Brother
good,
Imhotep?
good, man.
Well, can y'all give us some feedback on the book of Clarence?
No, that's a whole nother topic. Okay.
Well, I mean,
We saw that movie. I'm sorry.
27 minutes.
No,
Oh, you
but
know what? I haven't seen it yet, JD.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
All right.
but I hear that it's good. One of our old time members, a brother by the name of Dwight Acey, just posted something today in Facebook, and he was kind of giving a critique. He said it kind of starts out slow, but it picks up with a bam, and he was giving it a good review, his personal review on it. So I plan to see it. Just it's for nothing else, just to be able to have conversations with people about it.
Yeah, I would just want to chime in on that. I look forward to people seeing it. I don't want to give any spoilers, but I will say, in my opinion, and I think I saw someone else's review, I've looked at a few, it's basically kind of like getting everybody back into the idea, of Jesus and the faith, and keep faith and keep alive. But that's another discussion. This one is a good one. So
yeah, it is.
that's it. Thank you.
Well,
all right. Thank you both for commenting. Sister Celeste has put in the chat the book that she held up because someone was asking. It's called The River of No Return: The Autobiography of a Black Militant and the Life and Death of SNCC by Cleveland Sellers. So that information is in the chat for everyone to see. All right. Anything else? Mama Conke joined us. Thank you for being there. Good to see you. Mama Rose, you have any thoughts on the matter?
No, I'm just listening.
Okay. How about you, Sister Mona? Okay, we're going to go on then. We have about 20 minutes of time left. So I have a few more things in this outline. And it's just basically a rough outline of things that are pertinent to King's life. Okay, and I think we stopped at number 7 here.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, come on. Sometimes these things get hung up.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. So let me start this again. Oh, it's still hung up here. All right. But anyway, okay. So the last thing we were talking about was Johnson signs the Voting Rights Act into law. Of course, that vexed a lot of people, and then massive rioting occurred in Watts, the Watts riots. And then the other thing too, okay, it finally cleared. Voting rights, massive rioting. And then this was the other thing that got King in trouble because they love war in the United States. Out of the just over 200 years of the existence of the country, most of it has been in some kind of war. And so he begins to speak out against the Vietnam War, which who could tell you why we were there? I've never seen a good explanation.
Mm-hmm.
Why were we there in the Vietnam War?
Mm-hmm.
And then King moves to Chicago to commence the SCLC campaign there. Stokely Carmichael popularizes, this is 1966, Black Power as a civil rights rallying cry. And Professor Maynew spoke about this. He said that King didn't necessarily like the phraseology, but he liked and was devoted to Black Power in a real sense. See, somebody put something in the chat. Oh, okay, couldn't unmute yourself. That's all right, thanks. I know you were trying. King leads demonstrations in Chicago. He delivers his first sermon devoted entirely to the issue of Vietnam. We need to go back and listen to that.
Mm-hmm.
We need to go back and listen to his speech on Vietnam. This was just, about 1 year before he was assassinated. And then he announces his vision for Poor People's March on Washington. This is, okay, he had left the moral issue and gone to the economic issue. So one of the last things that he had led was a garbage man strike in Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
And notice April 4th, 1967, April 4th, 1968. He's assassinated on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel. He was maneuvered in being in that location at that time. Riots broke out across the nation in reaction to his death. And I remember a lot of people got beat up during that time. And then people like Stevie Wonder and a whole bunch of people, they lent their support and devotion to making Martin Luther King's birthday a national holiday. And it was all right to make his birthday a holiday as long as he remained that pork chop barrel preacher with a Bible under his arm saying, "We shall overcome." But if the real image of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King was out there, it would have been no way he would have been he would have got a national holiday. He would have got a national holiday in the same way that Malcolm X got a national holiday.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's this book here, codenamed Zorro.
Mm.
The Murder of Martin Luther King Jr. by Mark Lane and Dick Gregory. This was the code name that the FBI used for Martin Luther King. So, I mean, we know how vicious the system can be. And so it kind of outlines the links that they went to in order to assassinate Martin Luther King. And they just about were successful in assassinating his character. But we wouldn't let that happen. We're not letting that happen tonight because we're reviewing actual facts of his life. One of my favorite pictures, when they met, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. This is like Upper and Lower Kemet.
Mm-hmm.
This is like the unification of the two lands.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that you could join us, sisters and brothers, for this session. And that's basically the outline that I have.
Minister Imhotep.
Yes.
I
Yes,
do have a question for you.
Uh-huh.
I had a conversation today with Sister Moana. What will happen to Malcolm X's legacy that he only have a granddaughter?
I don't know. Malcolm X's legacy, I think
No,
it's
Dr. King.
okay.
Have a granddaughter.
Well, I think people like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and others like that, they're on such a large level. We're all sons and daughters and granddaughters of them. Their legacy is so profound. Yeah.
I guess I in the namesake, because he have two son and a daughter, and then the granddaughter.
Yeah. Well, the King family, just not just him, but it's a large family, I understand. And so that King family will live on and continue.
Oh, well, good. That was my question.
Yeah.
Good. That's the answer.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Brother Damani, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, if y'all get a chance, listen to this Dr. Mark Lamont Hill gives a sermon, I guess a speech about Dr. King and the I Have a Dream speech.
Uh-huh.
It is dynamite. It's about 25, 26 minutes long. Dr. Lamont Hill. It's on YouTube, and he's very articulate. Anyway, one thing he talked about is King stayed on Jericho Road. And King, in the speech, King said that Jericho Road was a winding and meandering road. You know, in the Bible, I guess this road was very unsafe. This road was full of evil lurked on this road.
Mm-hmm.
And King and the civil rights movement and the Black Power movement and a lot of our ancestors stayed on Jericho Road.
Yes.
And so we never got anything to be oppressed about, depressed about or sad about, because we're not on Jericho Road.
Thank you, Brother Damani. Go ahead, Sister Judy, you have your hand up. But you have to take yourself off mute, otherwise we can't hear you.
Okay, I was trying. We were in the car. I'm on the phone. Yes, Minister Imhotep, Barbara Smith Giles, my homegirl from Tuskegee, she just joined us.
Yes.
And she, at the end of our last week's conversation, she and I spoke, and she wanted to share something quickly that I find almost unbelievable about King. And I wanted you all to hear this to see what you think, what's your take on it. If Barbara's there, I think she's not wanting to be on camera tonight.
Well, she actually is on camera and she's here. And go ahead, Barbara. And take yourself off mute. Barbara, you have to take yourself off mute. Barbara, you're still on mute. You took your camera off, but we can't hear you yet.
Now, how are that?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Several years ago, I was listening to WAOK, and they had a gentleman from Britain on who had done extensive research, 12 years to be exact, on the assassination of Martin. And he went on to say in his findings that Martin was not dead when he left in the ambulance at the Lorraine Hotel. And I found that shocking. They said that he said he had been smothered at the hospital with a pillow. Well, I all those years I just filed that away as you gotta be kidding me. Well, I went to the well, it's not new anymore, the museum in Atlanta, the Heritage Museum down by Coca-Cola and the aquarium. And when you go in, if you go straight backward into the building, and on the left, there's an elevator, and then there's steps up to the second level. That day I was there, the elevator wasn't working. So I was forced to take the steps. And you go up, and then there's a landing, and you go further to the second floor. Well, at the landing, there's a collage of photographs. And of course, I couldn't resist stopping to look at all these photographs. Well, lo and behold, in the middle, there's a picture that caught my eye. And it made me flash back to the young man from Britain who had talked about Dr. King was not dead when he was taken from the Lorraine Motel. The photograph showed Dr. King on a gurney. He was propped up on the gurney. His neck was bandaged with white bandages, very, very large, all the way around his neck. He had his hat on his lap and a white sheet draped over his legs. And I was shocked because I remembered the young man saying he wasn't deceased when he was taken from the Lorraine Motel. And here before me was this photograph proving that. And I took a picture of it, and it's in one of my old cameras somewhere, my old phones. I want to go back down there and take that picture again. I was in disbelief, but here was the proof right there in front of me.
And I assume that that picture is still on display in the Heritage Museum downtown Atlanta. And it does seem to prove that Dr. King wasn't deceased. He was sitting up, propped up on the gurney, ready to be rolled into the ambulance with his hat on his lap, his legs draped with a white sheet, and wide white bandages wrapping his neck. And I, to this day, was just in awe that this gentleman who had researched for 12 years was telling the truth.
Well, you know, Barbara, I had heard that story before.
Go down there. Well, if you're ever in Atlanta, you can go into that museum and see that photograph.
I'm wondering if you
Right
could.
there for the world to see.
I'm wondering if you could go online and you know maybe examine those photographs. I don't know when I would get a chance to, but if you ever find that picture, please share it with us. I
I'd
would
be more than delighted to do that because the world needs to know the rest of the story.
I thought maybe Dick Gregory said something on the same lines or something, because Dick has said some stuff that,
yeah.
that is always different. It seems like Dick Gregory said something about that. But I've heard it too also, Minister Imhotep.
Yeah, I've heard that before. I've heard that before, and you know the reason why uh, we're willing to believe it just hearing it is that we wouldn't put it past them. You know, we wouldn't. But I had never heard about the photograph, and Barbara, I want to thank you for bringing that to our attention. And if you ever get a chance
I
to,
most certainly will make an effort to go there and retake that picture.
thank you.
I no longer have a car. I lost my car in a vehicle accident,
Yeah.
and so I and not well. I can get there. It's just I haven't done it.
All right. Well, we look forward to receiving that from you, and thank you for sharing, and thank you for joining us this evening. We always love to see you. Okay, Brother Damani has his hand up. Go ahead,
Oh
Brother.
yeah, real fast. I'm saying, if you get shot, they can't lay you flat on your back. You get shot around the neck region. You got to elevate the head and the neck so the blood will flow down. So they're not gonna lay you flat on a gurney, and you shot up around the neck. You'll choke on your own blood. And so, personally, I think it's going down a rabbit hole. I think we ought to think about where do we go from here. What would King want us to be doing in the present? That's the way I feel about it. I don't think revisiting we ain't nothing we can do about the past, what happened on that day. Yeah, that's
No,
my thoughts.
I respect your opinion, but I had heard that before, and you're right. It won't change things, but it's just another part of the story, and I look forward to getting that picture when Sister Barbara gets a chance to do it. Go ahead, Judy.
Okay, can you hear me?
No.
Okay, good.
All
No,
right.
I'm teasing. I knew there was a reason I had responded earlier when that was the answer that I wanted to, the question I wanted to respond to. Where do we go from here? As I was listening to all of these efforts Damani shared with us, that many that we know about, with all the different efforts to stop and undermine all of our efforts, the thing that came to mind to me, the one power, the only power that I see with all the technology, the chips, the tracking us everywhere we go now, the one power that I think we have is economic power. If we were to go ahead and, do the boycotting that they so are fearful that we'll ever do, that seems to be nothing. Those were, to me, were some of the most effective ways to make changes. At least I'm from Tuskegee, and Montgomery area, Alabama. That's how we got things. There was a unity in the community when it was said, we're not buying, when our parents were told, hey, everybody do not buy this product or let's not support this. It was a total shutdown, just like the Montgomery boycott. If we got this, I know it may be idealistic, particularly since so many of our celebrities supposedly in the music industry and all have been, we're saying they're part of the system, have taken the oath and all of these different things. But it seems to me that if we were to shut down some of these major companies that depend on us so much and our money, we have a possibility. That to me is our only chance. That's my thoughts.
All right. Well, thank you. So it's 6:29, and I want to thank everyone for their contribution to this discussion. Really a great discussion, but I think we need to, as Professor Manu was saying, and as Brother Damani was saying, and as others were saying, we need to follow up on what Dr. King thought. And this was such a powerful thing that he had to die for it. He was not only talking, but he was able to bring people into the streets, thousands of people, to overturn the law about something that he believed in and something that we thought must happen. So I'm glad that we had this discussion. I'm glad that we had the celebration of Martin Luther King's birthday. It at least reminds us to think about Dr. King. And among the myriad of things that are going on in our life, at least we get a chance to resurrect his image, his thoughts, his words, his deeds, people that interacted with him, that were able to bring about civil rights legislation, discrimination in many areas. And actually now we have a movement, a MAGA movement, that wants to roll those things back.
Minister Imhotep,
Yes.
pardon me. I wanted to hear, could I not hear just a response as to or maybe on another night, but I did want to hear Damani or either your response to boycotting and economic, us with using economics to boycott and get power.
I think
gain power.
I think that to say that would be our only weapon, I think that would limit us. There are a lot of things that we can do, and there's things that we need to strategize on. I think that was very effective, and we need to look at why it was effective then and how it could be effective now in this age of artificial intelligence, social media, and other things that are associated with it. So I thought that it was a good idea, but I don't think that it's the only thing that we can do to be liberated, to liberate our communities. There's so many.
I didn't mean the only thing either, but that was one of a powerful strategy. But no, I don't think that we have to liberate our minds before we can do anything.
Okay, I thought, excuse me, I thought I heard you say that. I thought you said that was the only thing that we need, that we should do, that would be most effective. And I apologize.
Yeah, I did. I'm getting clear. No, I was giving clarity. Now, I did say that, but I didn't mean it that's the only way. I thought that I really should have said that would be one of the most effective ways now, because we're major consumers. We spend lots of money. And so, we have a lot of economic power when we don't have political. Damani was mentioning our lack or, having little political power. real power politically, at least in this system. But we have other ways of organizing, yes. But I was just mentioning that and just wanted to clarify, I meant a very effective way, not the only way.
That is a Sister Zarita, you have your hand up. Go ahead. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, I just want to uplift the words of the Asar Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. gave when he said, "We as a people will make it to the promised land." And I believe his vision, because I believe what he stated is foundational. And we have to look at, what did he mean by that? I believe it. What did he mean by that? What does it look like? How do we strategize by that? All of that. But I believe him. It takes me to the scriptures when it talks about a son will come from the South. I believe it. I believe it. And I think that is foundational. There's so much hope. And based on the brilliance and the tenacity and the self-determination of our people. Ashe.
Ashe, and we're going to make that the last word. Thank you all for joining us. We hope that you could join us next week. The topic will be announced at service this Sunday. This Sunday, Minister Amadi will be giving the message, and we love that everybody was able to join us. And those of you that are in the Sacramento area, Elk Grove, Sacramento, you know where it is. We're having the sound healing this Saturday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. with Brother Terrence Elliott. And I think I'm going to put that in the chat before I leave. Don't forget to save the chat, because there's a lot of good things that were put in the chat. And also, let me put in Professor Mainu's, I'm going to put his last year's Black Knowledge Matters. So I put that in the chat too, that you can save. So in order to save the chat, those three dots at the top, just click on that, and then we'll come down and says save chat, do that, and then you got what we put in. Okay, thank you all for coming across the country, and
Hey, one quick closing Dr. King quote. We're caught up in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied together by a single garment of destiny. What affects one affects all. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. I love that one.
Ashe. Well, see you all. Take care.
Ooh,
Life,
great class. Thank
life,
you.
Wonderful.
life,
Live up, live
prosperity.
up.
Live up, live up.
Yes.